Walter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. My name is Al Graham, and we are coming to you live. Yes, as always, we are live here at lifestyleradio.net, and we'd like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's program. Tonight, Debbie Stutlz-Giffin joins me, and our guest tonight has run into a situation, and they're not available. So we've decided that Al Rapp is going to join us, as well as Green Irene. She's going to jump in here shortly, and we're going to talk about the news over the next hour or so. So, Deb, how are you down there on the old East Coast?
Well, all things considered, Al, I'm doing okay. It's been a rough ride around here since last Friday, certainly.
It sure has. That's right, it sure has. And we're going to be discussing that probably first here. Just checking to see if Al's still with us.
Yeah, I'm here, bud.
You're there.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
good
here.
stuff.
I'm just making sure the buttons are on. I'm not usually used to talking.
Oh, we've got you multitasking now, Al.
Yeah, I know.
That's right, exactly.
I have a system, and now it's all messed up.
Yeah. Tonight's guest, Heidi Chartrand, we're really looking forward to the conversation with her tonight. We'll be talking about her. Unfortunately, we won't be able to talk with her. We've saw some disturbing news on Facebook, and we thought it was best to let her deal with that, and we'll do this as for tonight's show. Right, Deb?
Absolutely.
That's right.
I think that Debbie has enough information on the case anyways to enlighten people on what's really going on as opposed to what they're reading.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, Heidi's fine, just family member. All right?
Yeah.
So,
A furry family member.
Furry family member.
Exactly, furry family member, and they're all members of the family. When they're furry and feathery either. So, all right, guys. Deb, you want to fill everybody in what's going on? We know that about Heidi with the Higher Living Wellness. They got raided.
Well, on Friday, Al, I was sitting here around lunchtime on the computer, and I got a message from one of our board members who happened to be in the Greenwood area, which is in the Annapolis Valley for any of our listeners who aren't quite sure, which is about a half of an hour, 40 minutes away from where I live. The message was that the dispensary had been raided. Subsequently, minutes later, I was seeing a video of the two people who were at the dispensary, the staff and volunteer for the day, being let out in handcuffs, being put in cruisers, being taken away, and I thought that everything was done and over with. But very quickly found out that no, the RCMP were still inside securing evidence and searching the premises. So I hopped in my vehicle and went up, and during the trip I received several messages and had to pull over several times to read them, indicating that 3 other dispensaries in the Annapolis Valley were in the process of being raided at the same time.
Wow.
So,
simultaneous at the same time.
Absolutely, a lot of undercover vehicles, very few RCMP and or police vehicles sitting outside any of these dispensaries. In fact, I drove by one, and there was nothing on the exterior to indicate that anyone was inside boxing things up. And
Right.
5 minutes later, I get a picture of cops coming out carrying totes of supposed evidence.
Oh,
So
jeepers.
there have been 7 people who were arrested and subsequently charged with possession with the intent times 2. The times 2 means that they were charged for flour and rosin both. And looming court dates for December for most.
So I see there was three men, 4 women were arrested out of the 7.
Yes.
As we know, Heidi spent the weekend, right? I believe it was the weekend. She spent the weekend in jail.
Yes.
Was
We have.
she the only one who went to jail, or
She was. There's still one of the individuals involved with the 4th dispensary that charges are pending. They haven't connected with him yet. And then there's the 5th dispensary on the south shore of Nova Scotia that was also raided on Friday, and charges were laid against a husband and wife both there as well.
Oh, really? So there's a 5th one, yeah, because they don't mention
5th
it.
one.
But, yeah.
So that's a whole separate article. The RCMP were just getting around to Monday and Tuesday doing their press release, and there's been one trophy shoot, if you will, of everything that was gathered at the Shelburne location. But what this has done, there are probably as many other dispensaries in this area, if not more, who have now fearfully shut down with October 17th approaching. So it's been the shock and awe. We've been in and raided 5 dispensaries, rah, and we've laid all of these charges, and everybody else has just gone boom, either underground or totally stopped doing what they're doing in all of southwestern Nova Scotia. And I see that Higher Living Center in Dartmouth has also stopped distributing medicine, but that's more directly related to Heidi's charges than anything. And before we get into the whole weekend remand with Heidi, Chris Enns was posting today that there was one dispensary on the outskirts of the city that was being raided, and the RCMP are busily going around using strong arm techniques with landlords, trying to discourage them from renting to people who were trying to run dispensaries. So, by God, one way or another, Al, they're looking at trying to shut them all down in this province.
That's what it appears to be. That's for sure, because they're hitting you all at the same time. And as you say, we're getting closer to that October 17th date.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, a number of people thought that Heidi was remanded for the weekend because I had heard through the grapevine that she had an impeding justice charge laid against her. And it was suspected that perhaps that was because she was filming the cops during the raid, illegally removing a phone from a stander by who was filming what they were doing. And that wasn't the case. Heidi was remanded for the weekend because she refused to bend over backwards to the ludicrous conditions, the overbearing conditions, if you will, that the RCMP tried repeatedly to get her to agree to. She did agree to 2 conditions. One, and this will tell you why the dispensary is on the down low right now, that she cannot be 2 meters close to any facility apart from a Nova Scotia Liquor Commission that will be distributing cannabis come October 17th. She can't be around a dispensary or any other type of store that sells cannabis.
Really?
And she can't work in a dispensary either. Those are the two conditions that she agreed to. The two that she blew them off and refused to sign and explained to them repeatedly how ridiculous they were. The first one is that she could not be around anyone who consumed cannabis recreationally.
Oh, go away. Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry. Mean, what are you going to do? Go walk up to everybody, go, but excuse me, but do you say, can I see your paperwork? Do you smoke cannabis? Like, really? You're in a social gathering? And
is that recreational joint that you're smoking over there, sir?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just so you know, Green Irene has joined us, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful, right. And just in time to hear the final, and I think it's even more ridiculous than the condition we just discussed. Heidi could not be within 2 meters of any outlet that sold bongs, pipes, or papers.
Why? Are they illegal?
They weren't giving any reason. She was telling them how ridiculous it was, because when you stop and think about it, you can go to the 7-Eleven, the grocery store, any gas station, and bare minimum, you're going to find papers for sale.
So for all intent purposes, she couldn't even go to a grocery store.
Yep.
Absolutely. And her comment to them was, you're setting me up for failure. You're setting me up so that I will be remanded until October 23rd, when I'm supposed to come back for election and plea. I can't even get gas for my vehicle or get groceries.
Might as well put her under house arrest.
Well, in effect, really. You could drive down the road as long as you didn't get too close to a store, I suppose.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
so I can see why she rejected those.
The 1 minute of humor in the courtroom was when she agreed to the condition that would not the disallowing her to be around a dispensary, but that she could purchase cannabis at a Nova Scotia liquor outlet. She laughed, and over half of the courtroom, because the majority of the people in the courtroom at that point were supporters who were there for Heidi. People just cracked up.
Yeah. I can see why. Exactly. Not allowed to go into a dispensary, but you can go into a government-run store.
Yes, I mean, and that's absolutely why we were there, was in protest of government stores and the fact that the government wasn't being inclusive of medical cannabis dispensaries that have been in existence in this country for over 20 years.
Now, do you know if, I've heard of some people when they get arrested and they're in jail, they end up having to sleep on a cement floor. Do you know if Heidi had to do anything like that? Or
She didn't have to sleep on a cement floor, but Heidi has a number of health conditions. She has a list of allergies longer than your arm, including wheat, dairy, eggs. So that was problematic, particularly when she was in a local cell, because she was kept at an RCMP detachment for Friday night. The blanket that was in her cell, they told her, had recently been washed, that what she could see was lint on the blanket. It was bed bugs.
Oh.
The blanket was dirty. It caused her skin to have severe reactions, and she's been to see a doctor to get medication for it. She has fibromyalgia, and she felt at different intervals the air conditioning was being deliberately turned on so that she would be cold. But certainly once she got to Burnside, which is the provincial penitentiary, she said things were much different. the sheriffs were like, "Why are you in here?" And she would tell them, and they were absolutely shocked. The women in the area that she was placed in the penitentiary, because the holding area was apparently all filled, were very helpful to her. She felt unusually so. One of them brought her a sweater. I think someone else at one point maybe brought her a banana, and certainly anybody that knows Heidi wouldn't be surprised by this. She spent a huge chunk of her time while she was in remand educating the female prisoners, every sheriff she came into contact, right through till Monday when she was brought to Kentville to appear in court. She was talking to sheriffs and educating them. And certainly when we were in court in Kentville, the sheriffs were very respectful, very helpful, and you had the strong feeling that they didn't like doing what they had to do, that they weren't in favor of her being remanded, and you could just tell with the attitude that they had and the way that they spoke to us. And the lead sheriff was a female, and she even took a picture of the swarms of people outside, because there were at least 75 people standing on the lawn waving signs or yelling in support of Heidi and dispensaries in general. She took pictures and took them down.
Nice. I actually I see a picture there on the news article I got in front of me, and there's a lot of people standing around with signs like "Free Heidi" and that on them, letting people know that, hey, this isn't right.
Well, there were sign-making parties in both of the higher living wellness dispensaries on Saturday and Sunday, and people gathered and medicated and made signs and talked, and it was a wonderful experience. People certainly feeling that they were doing something useful and worthwhile to support Heidi and to try to draw public attention to this atrocity.
Yes, and this is part of, I'm sure, people who did it automatically, and with Mom, you had the court challenge thing as well, right?
Well, certainly this goes hand in hand with our court support initiative program of being in court to support people who've been charged because of medical cannabis.
Yeah. Now, did they, as far as press that day, many show up?
Absolutely, Al. I had told the media that we'd be there by 8:30, and it was just because of a little bit of difficulty connecting with one of the people who was coming with me. I was a tiny bit past 8:30 getting there. And at that point, we already had CTV and a local weekly newspaper there. But as the morning went along, we had another Global turned up, and the provincial paper were there. The local radio station became involved, and they were encouraging people to call their rant line the next day to air their views on things. And just this morning, I took part in the Rick Howe show, a call-in show in Nova Scotia. Well, they do some call-ins, and they do some 10, 15-minute interviews with people about various issues.
Good. Lots of interest then. That's, lots of media coverage.
Absolutely. And I was actually able to get the local weekly paper there on Friday to kickstart the whole media thing, which was helpful, because certainly the RCMP weren't forthcoming with their press release. So it gave me something I could tag on with my press release about Monday's court protest and why we were there to add validity.
I know some people don't like the media, but because they don't know how the story is going to come out in the end. But it's good to see that they're interested in this, and let's just hope that the way that the stories come out, that it's all in positive light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And information is power, good, bad, or otherwise.
That's
It's
right,
getting
exactly.
attention.
Well, guys, why don't we take a break?
Sounds like a plan.
What do you think, Al? You got that break queued up there?
Yeah, I got the break queued up, and then we'll come back and switch topics.
Well, we may talk a little bit more about this, and we'll switch topics to the Ontario situation. We got that audio of that announcement today. Yep. We're going to want to play that, right? So,
yep. And I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about after that.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. Okay, so let's go to our break. And it just happens that our audio for today is from Les Mosquitoes, and it's called Justice, and that's what a lot of people are looking for. So the four of us, we will return after the break. They're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca. Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck, and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the award-winning Pace Radio Show, and we are live here at lifestyleradio.net, and we're also live at Spreaker and TuneIn Radio, plus other locations. Tonight on the program, I'm joined by my joint host, Debbie Stutlz-Giffin, and as well, Al Rapp and Green Irene are here as well. Our scheduled guest, Heidi Chartrand, isn't available, and we wish her well with her fur baby. And we're thinking about her. So, okay, people, we were talking about the raids in the first segment, and we're going to continue discussing about that before we make our way onto the Ontario thing. And Deb, one question I wondered about, was this just in one general area, or was this spread out amongst the province? Like you said, there was 5 places.
Well, the raids were all west of Halifax, if you will, Al. So, yes, all on one end of the province. And that entire area now, all of the dispensaries have either been closed by law enforcement or by intimidation and fear.
Yeah.
And in Heidi's situation, not only was it a dispensary, a patient lounge and gathering place, but there was also a front-end store that had a lot of bongs and clothing and that sort of thing. The RCMP took anything out of the store that had a Higher Living Wellness logo on it, or the words Higher Living Wellness Center on it. For instance,
what would be the point of that?
Excellent question. But the clothing would be items that people would buy in support of them as well. The bongs would be things that people would go in and buy to support them, even if there was no medicine in the building.
Yeah.
The bongs.
That tells me that there's an ulterior motive there.
Absolutely.
For sure. The bongs, several of them were broken and on the floor when staff went back in Friday after the raid and after law enforcement had left, and I went in with them.
Is that really necessary? Like, really? Like,
well,
are you saying they got to break all these things just to see if there's something inside that clear glass bong that they can see right through to the other side?
Well, that's absolutely how ridiculous it is, isn't it?
Sure it is.
But they broke some bongs on the floor. They took bongs and glassware out of protective wrappings, out of boxes, and threw them into large cardboard cartons. I then heard from someone who was walking by on the other side of the street that they could hear the glass shattering as they were throwing the boxes on the back of the truck to take them to the detachment. So certainly it was an effort to cut them off at the knees.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has to pay for that stuff. It's all just there. You know, I mean, like...
There's no one... insurance wouldn't cover anything like that or anything.
Well, you would think that a reputable insurance company that was covering a cannabis business in Canada would, though?
I guess that's a question for. Well, I guess Scott does home insurance, but he would have business.
For
Jack,
or somebody, yeah.
Yeah, because I would wonder about, they would classify it as during our criminal investigation.
Right, and then not reimburse the retailer.
Correct. Yeah.
But in Nova Scotia, we have a situation. Jess James had cannabis taken wrongfully by the RCMP, had plants cut down, and through the court, she's sought and been awarded the right for financial relief for that because she was exempt.
Yes.
I remember that being posted and stuff, but I don't remember. Was there an end result to that? Did they come up with a dollar figure like for the plants?
I haven't heard a dollar figure for the plants, but I would think that they would be obliged bare minimum to follow the RCMP policy that each plant is worth $1,000, whether it's fully mature or a seedling with its nose out of the ground.
RCMP has on a cannabis plant.
Absolutely.
Every time you see they use
for years.
Yeah. Whenever they raid somebody, they got 10 plants to get $10,000 worth.
So that's where the numbers come from during the news.
Yeah,
that's right. So even if it's clones, 10 clones is $10,000.
Yeah,
but it has to be a living plant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now what happens? What happens if they go in? Sorry. What happens if they go into a warehouse and the guy's a shitty grower and it's all dead weed? Are they still gonna raid him?
If it's affiliated with the dispensary, probably.
That's fucking unreal.
Yeah,
we have a neighbor that was raided a few years ago, and he came over and told us the story. And then I went to town, and on the way I turned the radio on, and I'm hearing about. It sounded like a small grow up, 20-some plants and lights and bands, and good Lord, it was a bunch of seedlings in a tray with a furnace fan and a fluorescent light.
No.
I think he counted 9 had cracked the soil just before the cops came through the door, so we figured they went through the soil with toothpicks to find germinated seeds to count them.
Right.
Oh,
for heaven's sake.
Look at that. There's a root on there. It's 2 millimeters long.
But, I mean, by the court rule, I'm sure somewhere that distinguishes a plant as being live, and therefore they can charge $1,000 for that.
Yeah. Well, Deb, I think, do you recall that Health Canada had sent out a release or something, or it was in the news about that $1,000, not $1,000, the root thing, about being considered a plant.
Well, they even consider a cutting in a glass a plant, whether it's rooted or not, I believe.
Okay.
Really? So it doesn't have to be rooted.
What's
I
that,
think
Al?
the policing side of cannabis legalization is going to be very, very problematic just because of those minute details. Things like what is a living plant, at what level is it valued at. At a seedling, is it valued at? You're saying they'll follow the RCMP modules or modalities. But we all know, and we're learning, even the general public who isn't even cannabis interested is learning that these are unrealistic lines, I guess.
Numbers?
Numbers, yeah.
Numbers and criteria that has to, yeah.
Yeah. It is the whole thing is going to take several years, I think, to sort itself all out. It's a brand new industry, even though it's thousands of centuries old. It's brand new as a regulated industry, I guess.
And as anything that's gone from prohibition, such as alcohol, to becoming illegal, is crackdowns. And that's what we're seeing here in Halifax. And It's I'm sure we're seeing little bits, drabs here and there, all the way across the country.
I think that what it looks like is they're going by time zones, and you guys were first. Because and I'm joking there, of course, but this is what's going to happen across Canada now, between now and October 17th.
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right.
It is the reality of what's going to happen before you can't walk down the street and smoke a joint.
And as we've seen news reports about provinces having extra money for funds in order to have sort of like hit squads of police units that are going to go around.
They've got this bicycle squad of cadets in Manitoba that are going to be policing the parks and arresting and fining people.
I've seen that, yeah, cadets. There was even probably bylaw officers,
yeah, that's right, and cadets and bylaw officers, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. It's ridiculous, Al. Like I choose to look at things with humor, but by the same token, people are hearing stories in the media about what's going on Canada-wide, and we're going to be legalized in, what is it now, 21 days, 22 days?
Yeah.
That really is happening, but it's not a blanket legalization. It is a by-province legalization, and we're going to start having issues like the states have by state.
Yeah. I can see some. I can see some issues that are gonna come up.
Well, really, the only difference between us and the states is we don't have borders. Okay.
Correct. That's a benefit to us. But cannabis, is there not some laws about going cross-border?
Yeah. Well, look.
I think you mean from state to state versus province to province.
I think that they have actually said that you can carry your cannabis. Here's your limit, and this is what you can carry.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's
Can I also remind everybody, and I like to do this all the time. What we're talking about now, as far as this legalization on October 17th, is for recreational users.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Not medical. If you are a medical cannabis patient and you need a license, get one. If you are a medical cannabis patient and you have a license, don't listen. Because we have our laws, and there's going to be issues, unfortunately, with, you can't smoke that here. Yes, I can. I'm medical. You got proof? No, I don't have it on me. You're under arrest. And it's going to happen.
That's going to happen. Exactly. I was just thinking the same thing. It's going to. I'm sure there's some patients out there that at times don't always carry that piece of paper with them, and maybe now look at it. It's going to make sure that they do carry it on them, because they're more apt to maybe be asked about it, because it's going to be.
Here I have a very serious question. It was made very, very clear to me, and I also announced it on a regular basis from the vape lounge perspective. We don't have a right. You, me, or Joe Blow does not have the right. Even up until not that long ago, municipal police officers did not have the right to request your medical information. That is a federal, like an RCMP has the right to investigate your medical information. But and I know the law was changing a little bit last year. I'm not sure exactly how that all played out in C Bill 174. But the unlike at a bar where you have the right to ask for ID, that is all that we had the right at the lounge to ask for was ID. They had to be over the age of 19, and the assumption and onus was on the consumer that they were a medical consumer. If an undercover police officer were to come into the lounge and request from that person their verification that they were a medical patient, that could go to court very quickly and very easily. You don't have,
That's how
I've been spending a lot of time in Gunjanistas, and just like over the last week, there's been more often than not a younger person coming in, and they're obviously not of age. They don't act it. They don't. I mean, even a pothead, a 19-year-old pothead, acts a certain way. And they're trying to get in. The younger kids, they're trying to get into these lounges in the city, and you've got to say, hey, no, like, you're not old enough. Come back next year. Right. Yeah. And I know that every time that one of the staff there has to do that, they feel bad, because usually the kid's going like, fuck, man, are you serious? Like, they're bummed out. It's not like they're going, they won't let us in.
Yeah, no.
So,
and that was I know when Marco had vape on the lake and the other lounges there in the city in Toronto, that was the same thing they said. Is that, hey, we can't ask for the medical proof. That's we're not allowed to do that. And
if somebody comes in and
says, it was up to them to prove it.
That's right. I'm medical, and here's my medical proof. That's one thing. But you've got to, on the medical side of things, you really got to take them at their word, because you're not allowed to question somebody about stuff like that. Your age, yes.
Exactly. And that's why for the vape lounge, that's what we had, is we had a couple of membership rules in place, and one of them is you must be 19 plus.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay, Deb, is there anything else that you would like to touch on as far as the raids there in Halifax and?
Well, I'm hearing murmurings of possible dispensaries possibly seeking injunctive relief, and I'd also like to make note that the date escapes me, but a few weeks ago, a dispensary in Antigonish was in court, and they were in the throes of mounting a constitutional challenge when the Nova Scotia Medical Association of Cannabis Dispensaries, of which Heidi is a member, made a motion for injunctive relief. That was heard the following week, and the judge did deny it because he felt that the association didn't encompass enough dispensaries, but they've been working really hard to keep it 100% medical, and these days certainly that's becoming increasingly difficult with some of the dispensaries.
Can you explain what that what is it, injunctive relief?
Yes.
Can you explain what that is, please, Deb?
To the best of my ability, Al.
Okay.
If there's a constitutional challenge, another group can, through a lawyer, file for relief. They can go in and if it's accepted, the lawyer for the third party can then become actively involved in the challenge and present evidence and just to make sure that a complete picture of the case is presented. For instance, in the Smith decision, I believe the AIDS Society of Canada had its intervener status. My apologies.
Correct.
Had filed for intervener status. And there were other groups as well. The Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance had as well filed for intervener status.
Sante Cannabis out of Quebec, Adam Greenplant?
Yes.
Yes. Lori was involved in that as well. Yeah.
Yep. So this would be something similar. And although the judge did deny them the opportunity, they are...
Why would they make that available and then deny it? I mean, are you not supposed to be able to gather as much information to show the courts your innocence and have other people interject on that?
Well, I'm not sure as to why the intervener status was denied, because apparently they are still allowed to participate in the trial and the judge is encouraging it.
So what's yeah.
But it was Chris Enns who was there arguing for the right for intervener status. I believe he had a lawyer as well. The judge had concerns, and the quote that I got from Chris Backer, who happened to be in the courtroom, that it would become the Chris Enns show as opposed to being representative of all of the dispensaries. So I'm not quite sure the entire rationale.
They've got a thing for Chris, and they're gonna, they're not going to want anyone to use him and his knowledge and his caseload, because he's been, how many times has he been arrested and gone through the whole thing, and
Well, in November he had 3 sets of charges because of the farm having been raided, that were all dismissed because the charges fell under the MMAR and the MMPR, and both of those programs were deemed unconstitutional. So it was some dickering back and forth. Prosecution wanted him to swallow one of the charges and they'd make the other 2 go away. Well, in the end, they all went away because it certainly wasn't in the interest of the public to pursue these charges when the programs didn't even exist that he was charged under.
Do you think that arrests are going to increase or decrease?
I expect that my observation in Nova Scotia is that the arrest of patients has decreased in the last year, I would say. But is that because there are more people becoming enrolled in the ACMPR?
I have not seen any enrollment info at all from any LP at this point, really. I don't think they've publicly acknowledged what they actually have versus what they're serving as far as patients go.
Right, and I think part of that is because it's fluctuating so dramatically just on a monthly basis. A lot of a lot of cannabis doctors through the clinics that I've worked with are now dividing up the prescriptions so that patients can utilize more than one licensed producer, simply because licensed producers aren't keeping good product or quality product on the shelves. There's issues, and let's face it, we all know we need to grow our own, but if we have to buy it from a licensed producer, we'd like to at least get what we pay for. And so patients are bouncing all over the place. I was sitting with one client today who in the last 3 months has used 7 different licensed producers. So licensed producers can't keep track of their
from what I understand, a licensed producer does not have to inform Health Canada of patient names. All Health Canada wants from an LP are numbers. How many? What their ailments are, I don't even know. If you would know more about that, Deb. I don't believe I've ever heard anything saying that they even want to know ailments and stuff like that. Are they gathering information?
Well, certainly with the paperwork that we have to submit to Health Canada, the doctor doesn't have to list what health condition or conditions that the patient is dealing with that they want to address by using cannabis therapeutically.
Yeah, fair enough, but the LPs aren't even saying Bob Smith is now with us, Joe Blow is now with us, Peter Pothead is now with us. All they're saying is patient number 42, 9,052, and 750 are with us. I don't know how much information is going back and forth to Health Canada, really.
I think most of what they're recording at this point in time, or the only thing I've seen was in the Financial Post where licensed producers have identified numbers, and that was in relation to the amount of kilos or grams that they are, packaging for patients.
Yeah, it's going out the door. Yeah.
Hey guys, I gotta jump in here. Okay. I'm gonna jump in here. Let's go for a break, Al. I'm getting some messages. Your audio might be a little low.
Well, that's because I'm not usually here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, how's that? That'll be better.
I don't know. We'll find out after the break, I guess.
I guess so. Okay.
Okay, all right. Let's go. We're gonna listen to some more Les Mosquitoes and their song "Justice," and then we return. Deb and Al and Irene and myself. We will return, and we'll be changing subjects, and we'll be talking about what was announced today here by the Ontario government. And actually, you'll be hearing some of it. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
I played the first one again.
Oh, did
ya? They won't notice.
Every soul is equal. Overcome the system and rise above the evil. The poor keep getting stronger and the rich can't feed their hunger.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
This is Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Catch me on The Reefer Reporters, aired on lifestyleradio.net. Available for replay or download on Lifestyle Radio or Spreaker.
Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on lifestyleradio.net. Listen in until midnight every weekend as he spins your favorite reggae tunes, including the classics, from Butterfly's Passion, Bed and Breakfast Above Discovery Bay. DJ Passion makes you feel like you are on the island. Head to the land of sun, fun, and ganja weekly when you tune in Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to Reggae Saturday with DJ Passion, live here on lifestyleradio.net.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
Welcome back, and thanks for tuning into the program. We are being broadcasted live, as always, here at lifestyleradio.net. But if you ever missed the live show, don't forget you can always catch the podcast afterwards. And you can go to Shoutcast, Mixcloud, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Sonos, Google Play, iTunes, as well as Spotify.
Yeah, so Spotify. There's a lot of people listening on Spotify these days. So hi,
really?
How are you?
Eh?
Yeah. I've been looking at the numbers, and yeah, that's where people are coming from these days. Is Spotify.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. I don't actually have it myself, but I do have a family member who has it, and he tells me that they send him like music files, or like this music's picked for you, and I know each day or each week it has different kinds of,
it is a subscription service. Okay, let's be honest, it is. But Spotify is jumping into the podcast and live music market and all stuff, or live radio market and stuff like that, as everybody else is. So they're starting to carry folks like us, which I think is really cool. I was looking through it, and I mean, we're right there. When you put in 420 into Spotify or cannabis into Spotify, we come up. There's not many of us on Spotify yet.
Yeah, it's good to know that we're in there early.
That's awesome.
and as they say, you know, I'm sure that everybody who listens to a radio in their car have heard the new iHeartRadio commercials for the app. Okay, we're on that app as well. We're on the iHeartRadio Canada app as well. So you can't listen to us live on there, but you can listen to the podcast right after it's done.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
And not everybody's available, so it's always good that it is available afterwards and on so many apps as well.
But a live show format is a live show format. We don't edit any of the shows at all.
That's right.
Some of that's very evident.
Everything's built in, including the bloopers.
You know, Al, what it is I mean, I've been on the internet farting around for a long time, and I've watched programs like Skype and chat programs open up a window. We've gone from chat rooms to being able to have these kind of conversations.
That's right.
And so all the shows are structured, as you know, as a living room conversation, because that's where we are. Some of us are in our kitchens. Some of us are in our closet, a make work area. I used to have the station in 3 apartments ago sitting in a closet. Right? That's the only place I had that 3 computers and a desk would fit in that apartment. It was that small.
Yes, yeah. They used those chat relay systems.
The internet, as far as I'm concerned, the internet is here today for 2 reasons. Because of the IRC, which is the Internet Relay Chat, and pornography.
They say
I'm being serious. I'm being very serious.
I can hear Irene. Go, Irene.
Wait. Universities, BBSs. They were there before the IRC.
That's right. I had What's Up Toronto magazine online. I had a portal onto the internet through the service that I was using at the time. So I had a BBS system that was in the form of an online newspaper back in the 90s called What's Up Toronto magazine. And now that's on Il Paper, is it called? I don't know what it's called. It's I got Daily Stoner News and What's Up Toronto magazine. Just look for it. But there's a lot of people that came out of the BBS system that were involved in all kinds of software being. I know some of the original team from Skype who were working on it when they were just developing it. A lot of people were beta testing stuff like that back then, and now it's at the push of a button on our iPhone, or their Samsung, or
it's amazing how fast technology has advanced in such a short period of time and continues to. I mean, when it first started back in the late 80s, early 90s, when the internet was just starting to be introduced into homes.
What do you mean 90s? You mean this hasn't been around forever? Go ahead. Just so you guys know, Kim Cooper has joined our conversation here.
Hi, Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, guys. Hi,
I told her we were going to talk about Ontario.
Oh, yeah, we should do that. We can talk about technology anytime.
That's right.
That's right. But that technology, when it comes to cannabis, that technology has been a big bonus to cannabis.
Absolutely, and that's the only thing I can say about that is technology has progressed our movement by leaps and bounds. I mean, I remember back in the day getting signature sheets by mail along with the newsletter from Normal Canada in the mail. Right? Yeah. And that was the only way to communicate with anybody who was doing anything was through the mail.
And you saw it on the news.
So the advent of tech, and only afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Not beforehand. Now
somebody can pick up their cell phone and hit Facebook Live or Stitch or these other thousands of other apps and literally broadcast worldwide what you're doing right at that moment, and it's that has basically created the internet as the new broadcast media platform, because terrestrial radio is all transferring over the internet. They all have streams going,
There we go. We switched again. Back to the technology. The conversation.
I know. Sorry.
Okay,
how about this?
All right.
There's a lot of technology coming into this new life of ours, right?
Absolutely. This industry is built on it. And, I think a lot of the activists, patient advocates and such, it's given us a brand new forum to really reach a broad audience and just plant seeds of information. It really is the information highing.
It works both ways for the other side, though, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, there's scooping a lot of information, as we know. All these platforms. Yeah. There's all kinds of things that you agree to without realizing it or knowing it, but you don't always read those.
That's
things.
right. Yeah.
And then this week, Kim and I on the Reefer Reporters, we covered the article about how the government, our federal government, is going to sweeping social media to feel how people actually feel about the cannabis issue.
Exactly, like they should have been doing that 20 years ago instead of just sitting there going no.
Yeah,
it's amazing how much social media does influence our lives, and I felt the repercussions of that this week. That's for sure.
It's exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah, Kim had the mayor of her city calling her, "Hey, what's going on? What are you saying about me?"
So do we want to listen to the?
Yes, yeah. Let's explain to everybody what's going on here. Okay, the Ontario government today made an announcement on what's going on in the future when it comes to the cannabis retail land. My understanding is tomorrow they're actually going to be an announcement with the legislation of what it's all going to be. But today they had something, and we've got the audio of that announcement, correct, Al?
Some of it, anyways. Yes, just
okay.
It's a clip from the news, from today's news.
Cool.
So I am going to let it play, and I can't fast forward or anything. So CTV, thank you.
Yeah. There we go.
And you will let it play, and we will come back after that, and we'll discuss what we heard.
Yeah, it's 7 minutes and change. We may not play the whole thing, but we'll be back after that's done.
All right.
Okay. And
Awesome.
I'll turn it on so you guys can hear it as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, here we go.
I can't hear it either.
I can't hear it either. Wait for it. Just wait for it.
That's what's his name from CTV. Ben, that's the sister.
Yeah, you're going to hear our conversation, Al.
Situation has been out of the province related to cannabis coming up on the 17th of October. Let's listen into this.
Last month, Minister Fidelli and I shared details about our government's plan. A plan which has, at its foundation, a non-negotiable commitment to social responsibility. We will protect youth until whatever steps are necessary to ensure that cannabis remains out of the hands of people under the age of 19. We will protect our roads and ensure that our police are ready to enforce a strict prohibition against drug-impaired driving. Nous protégerons nos routes et verrons à ce que notre police soit prête pour appliquer l'interdiction rigoureuse de conduire avec faculté à faire. We will continue to work with our mental health and addictions experts to ensure the public are informed of the serious health risks of recreational drug use. Nous poursuivrons notre collaboration avec nos experts en santé mentale et dépendance pour nous assurer que le public est sensibilisé aux graves dangers pour la santé de la consommation de drogue à des fins récréatives. And we will act decisively to undermine organized crime and the illicit cannabis market. We released details of a two-phase regulatory approach that ensures these public trusts are protected following the federal legalization of cannabis. Starting on October 17th, Ontario will move to an online-only cannabis retail model run by the Ontario Cannabis Store, or OCS. This would be followed by a licensed private retail system for cannabis that will commence on April 1st. The implementation of this two-phased approach will require the introduction of new legislation and a series of legislative and regulatory changes to the current Cannabis Act that was passed by the previous government, along with amendments to other pieces of legislation. Today, Minister Fidelli and I are pleased to share that proposed legislation will be introduced tomorrow. If passed, the legislation will provide additional certainty and stability about the specific regulatory framework that will follow the federal government's October 17th legalization date. First, if passed, our legislation will introduce a robust licensing framework that will be overseen by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, the AGCO. This licensing framework would not be capped and would be driven by a formal application process administered by the AGCO. Ce cadre de délivrance de licence ne sera pas plafonné et reposerait sur un processus formel de demande de licence administré par la CAGO. Potential cannabis store operators would be required to apply for both a retail operator license in addition to a retail store authorization for each location they want to operate. Les personnes souhaitant exploiter un magasin de vente au détail de cannabis auraient à présenter une demande de licence d'exploitation pour vente au détail
for a retail license and ask for a manager's retail license for each store that would be opened.
The legislation, if passed, would also include regulation-making authority to set concentration limits for how many retail store licenses a single operator can hold. And we will have more to say on this in the days and weeks ahead. And in particular, the legislation would limit the ability of federally licensed producers to own and operate retail locations. Any licensed producer will be permitted to hold a single retail license at a single production site located in Ontario. The legislation, if passed, would also enable the province to set a distance buffer between cannabis retail locations and schools. Si le projet de loi était adopté,
if the bill is adopted, the law would also authorize the province to set a minimum distance between a retail store and schools.
Would also be required to issue a public notice upon receipt of any retail authorization application with a 15-day period to receive public and municipal input about a particular store location. La CAJO serait aussi requis de donner un avis public.
It would also have to put a public statement of application for a license for at least 15 days for public feedback on the location of a certain store.
Last month, municipalities would have a one-time window to opt out of permitting physical cannabis retail within their municipal boundaries. The deadline for such opt-outs would be January 22nd. Which is 3 months after the municipal elections. The legislation would also ensure that First Nations communities are provided with an opportunity to prohibit cannabis retail within their communities. La loi proposée permettrait aux Premières Nations
the bill would allow First Nations to refuse the distribution or licensing of a retail store or to prohibit the opening of a private retail store.
I want to highlight that the AGCO's deep experience as an alcohol and gaming regulator makes it perfectly suited to be the province's cannabis retail regulatory authority as well. J'aimerais souligner
I would like to underline that thanks to its rich experience in the gaming and alcohol industries, this would be the best organization to serve as regulation for cannabis.
AGCO staff possess a deep understanding of compliance enforcement in sectors that share the similar risks as what we expect from the cannabis market. In addition, our legislation would, if passed, modify rules around public consumption of cannabis to align with the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. This would include amending the Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017 to prohibit smoking and vaping of cannabis in areas where the smoking of tobacco is also prohibited, such as enclosed public places and enclosed workplaces. In addition, the legislation would prohibit the consumption of cannabis in vehicles and boats that are being driven or under a person's care or control, recognizing that in these circumstances, cannabis poses risks similar to alcohol.
The 2018 Toyota Highlander. You've got things to do and places to go. You want safety you can see.
They were saying in the beginning there was not going to be any consumption allowed anywhere except private residence. That seems to have changed.
That seems like a win.
Yeah, that's a big win. If they're saying, okay, just no smoking anywhere, there's no smoking.
Now, and they also stated, what was the wording that she said?
Smoke-Free Ontario Act, as far as
so that she's aligning with the Smoke-Free Ontario Act.
If you're working outside and you're allowed to smoke a cigarette, then you're allowed to smoke a doobie.
That's right. So they're basically saying the only place you cannot consume cannabis is any place that there's no smoking. You have to adhere to the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. So if there's no smoking, there's no smoking anything, including vaporization of cannabis in the no smoking zones.
So
but they didn't.
Yeah. Now, as far as somebody smoking a cigarette while they're working outside and smoking a joint while they're work. I'm sure the employer would have a different opinion.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But you know what? If your job is working at a fairground and they allow cannabis on the park grounds and you're just standing around giving out tickets and you're a medical patient and your boss says you go ahead, I know I'm making a big story up, but yeah, it's true. then
well,
you'd
you're a
be
medical
allowed
patient,
to.
you're under
That's
a
right.
whole different set of
Yeah.
rules.
Fair enough.
So
fair
you
enough.
throw that in there. You're under a whole different set
Yeah.
of rules if you're a medical patient.
Yep.
So I mean, basically, what they're saying is, if you're allowed to smoke cigarettes there, you're allowed to smoke cannabis there.
Yeah.
So how's that, Deb? How's that to get an East Coast perspective on that, being the rest of us here in Ontario? How did some of that compare to what what's happening down at your end of the country?
The only area in Nova Scotia that's come out with any kind of a consumption policy, if you will, has been the Halifax Regional Municipality, and they've been back and forth and all over the map, but it's looking very much like they're going to disallow any public smoking of cannabis or tobacco. I think that's where they've settled. There was some conversation for a bit that they would let people consume tobacco on the streets of Halifax because, God forbid, these poor people were addicted to nicotine. But
Yeah.
you couldn't consume cannabis because we didn't want us to have the children see you consuming cannabis, and it's just so convoluted.
You know what?
It's
Deb,
ridiculous.
At this point,
Didn't they make some law that, okay, we're going to ban all smoking, and then when everybody freaked out, they said, okay, we're making it tobacco exempt.
Yeah, that's.
And I think that they didn't. I think they had that discussion, but didn't remove that provision. I think it's still back to being smoke free in all of Halifax. And then, of course, you have some of the landlords disallowing cannabis consumption or cultivation within the unit. So, Smoke-Free Places Act disallowing you to consume cannabis in a vehicle at any time. So, where does that leave some of the poorer, marginalized people who can't afford to own their own home?
Absolutely. But I think it's hysterical. I mean, I know East Coasters. I know a lot of East Coasters that are great friends of mine. And they're no holds barred, no bones about it people. And you're going to go around telling them all that they've been smoking freely in their province for ever and ever and ever. And now you're going to look at them all and tell them, yeah, you're not allowed to smoke anywhere. Good luck with that, boys. Good
So
luck with that.
as far as the announcement that we heard, some other things that you noticed in there, they said there was no cap on the number of stores as far as the owners of stores, but they were going to limit the number of retail locations that those owners could have
individually.
Yeah. That's the one thing that they did say, that there will be a maximum count. There's going to be a stopgap, I guess. You're only allowed so many stores.
I think they're not going to limit the number they're going to have provincially, but they're going to say, they say Al Rap, and Kim and Deb and Irene, you guys were all going to own stores, but you can only own 5 stores.
So what is that going to mean for Shoppers Drug Mart?
I think that's
Shoppers
different.
Drug
Once
Mart
again, that's medical.
Oh, they're just going after the medical, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So different.
Or after recreational.
Different set of rules.
And I think this is one of the reasons for the dual licensing. Like they're saying, so you have to get your retail license, one for the operation of the business, and you need a second retail thing for store authorization. And the number of those that can be given to the retail operation, it has yet to be determined.
Correct.
Whereas with the LP, they're saying that licensed producers are going to be limited to one storefront, one brick and mortar storefront.
You know what? I find that very interesting. So that means that Tweed can only have one storefront.
Well, one storefront on their site. Yeah, that's right. So does that mean they're not going to allow licensed producers licenses to be retail in Ontario other than their own locations?
Well, that's what it sounds like.
I think to a large degree, the government or the people have pressured the government perhaps enough that the government's simply saying, they push to say that they're growers and that they have to focus on growing. Well, then focus on growing. Those who want to retail, those who want to produce, who want to create products, et cetera, focus. Be focused. There's enough industry here, really, to put every Canadian for the next 20 years that are born back to work in some way, shape, or form.
Like we know that Tweed's been lobbying to be able to have a store in Smith Falls. So that's basically what they're going to end up with, instead of that place having a chocolate store in it where you could go in and buy chocolates.
There goes all their Main Street stores.
I look so forward to this time next year when, with any luck at all, we can walk into a restaurant and ask for the infused menu.
That'd be nice. I look forward to that one down there, too.
We're at least a year away from that, from what they're
Well, guys, I'm looking for financing, but let's get that restaurant going. Cannabis chili and marijuana meatballs.
They also said that the province is to set the distance from schools to stores. I know at one time there was a situation in Toronto where there were so many schools that they couldn't put stores in because there was no room between them, because they wanted like 450 meters.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
So how realistic is that going to be? And you know what? I think that's just a number we're going to have to wait for to find out what the distance is going to have to be. Because
it's got to be a realistic number. It's got to be a realistic number this time. They can't be going over the top like they were in the beginning. That's for sure. How does everybody feel about the Alcohol and Gaming Institute taking over the helm of the...
You know what? They've been doing that stuff for a very long time, and I'd rather see an establishment that has somewhat of a good regulation track record controlling gaming and alcohol. I mean, would you rather a new outfit jumping into this and just with new people and everything? No, you'd rather have somebody who's playing that game already.
It's better than the LCBO, right?
Exactly.
See that game run through and game in there.
Yeah. It's far better than just handing it over to the LCBO.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Now with the LCBO, when you get a liquor license at your establishment, you have to hang up like a sign or notice in the window. I noticed that they said that when people are applying, they're going to request feedback from the public on locations. So they're going to look at hanging a sign in a window, I guess, for 15 days.
Yeah, they've got 15 days for public dispute.
Yeah, so usually when it's public notice, aren't those regulations according to the municipality? So you may have to put an article in the paper.
Yeah.
Or, those public notices in the classified section.
Usually there's a form you got to stick on the door or the window of the establishment that you intend to, notice this is what we intend to do with this place. And it's just, a written piece of paper that they stick on the window there. And nobody ever bloody reads them. Everybody just walks by them, right?
That's right.
But sometimes you're right, Irene. Sometimes you've got to put it in the newspaper. Sometimes you've got to submit to town council at the first town hall meeting, if time allows. It depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Right. And 15 days is usually enough notice for that to give that kind of... And, it gives the community an opportunity to say yay or nay. And, quite frankly, I don't want a strip club going in around the corner from the school just because it's 451 feet away from the school and it needs to be,
I hear what you're saying. I don't know if I agree with that in this instance, though. I mean, do LCBOs have to go through this?
Yes.
No.
Don't they?
No, they don't.
No way?
No.
I
don't.
No, I know of a high school that has a licensed establishment. It's not an LCBO, but it's a licensed
you don't have
establishment
to give
near
notice.
it. Yeah.
Is the Gaming Commission and the LCBO, are they now what is it for the cannabis?
CCBO.
The OCS. The
OCS.
But who's the controlling?
There's too many numbers. There's
the
letters now.
or something.
Who is the controlling? Who's the controlling party of the OCS? Is that the Liquor Control Board?
the ORCA or something along that line.
Okay, so the LCBO doesn't really control it then. They're just under their moniker.
Under their moniker.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's
so
the distribution
are
model.
they are the LCBO and this regulatory gaming commission, are they associated in any way, or are they totally different?
They're completely different enterprises. The Alcohol and Gaming Commission oversees everything that's got to do with alcohol, firearms, and gaming.
So that's basically the LCBO's boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's the right entity to oversee the regulation. I mean, it's a brand new industry. They've got a decent enough track record. They've been around long enough.
Yeah.
They deal with more than just chemical addiction. They deal with behavioral addiction, which is everybody's concern that isn't familiar with cannabis or isn't educated on cannabis, and it's part of what's still, allowing that archaic attitude to continue.
Now, isn't that the argument, though, that the previous government said? The LCBO are the people who are experienced and deal with things.
They're experienced and deal with alcohol and alcohol alone, whereas the Alcohol, Firearms, and Gaming Commission, they deal with various entities of these sort of adult.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
You know what? It's also like. It's like the FBI and the CIA and the local cops, right? It's in here in Canada, it would be RCMP and CSIS and local cops, I guess. And there's a controlling party of the controlling party. So basically, this regulatory commission of the Liquor Control and Gaming Board. They oversee the LCBO, which is overseeing the OCS.
Right.
Yeah.
So then the OCS will oversee their employees. I'm finding it very, very interesting what's happening as far as, or I said I'd like to find out what's going on as far as hiring practices and things like that, because I'm seeing jobs are available, but I'm not seeing the OCS we're hiring. I'm not seeing LPs we're hiring. I mean, they're there on their websites, but they're not publicly putting it out there.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, they're saying there's all these jobs available, but we're not seeing ads for jobs available anywhere.
And as far as the retail end of jobs, none of that will be,
that's not materializing.
Yeah, that's going to materialize.
Okay, well, no, not really, because who's going to be controlling the online sales portion of that?
Yeah, I agree. I believe that is that's already started.
Because essentially, once October, I mean, this is not how it's going to work, obviously, but on October 17th, you should not have to go to an LP to get your cannabis in Ontario. There should be a website that you can go to that is being controlled by the OCS, and they'll need employees.
Correct.
As somebody that used to work in one of these giant distribution warehouses for a different product, of course, but nonetheless, they're all basically the same distribution warehouses, especially online ones. Most of that shit is automated. It all runs on computer. They've got a room with a bunch of people that are sitting behind computer desks. Tickets are going out into the warehouse floor, and all you've got on the warehouse floor is a bunch of bins with all of your product and maybe a dozen or a couple of dozen order pickers that are picking orders, sticking them in a bin. Somebody else takes that bin, stuffs it in an envelope, a machine puts a label on it, and then it's out the door. It doesn't require a lot of jobs there.
But there are several things that you can't replace, really. Okay. And one of those is customer service, and those I hope to God that we're going to keep that kind of a job in Canada.
Yeah.
Because most call centers are located outside of the country or even the hemisphere.
Which is probably a large part of the reason why none of those jobs have become available on online databases like Indeed or Monster Jobs or et cetera, et cetera. Those jobs have not been available.
And they're, you know what? And they're not wanting to list those jobs. I mean, there is the same thing, the stigma thing. They don't want to list cannabis-related stuff. I mean, and now within the industry, you've got Leafly and Weed Maps, two giants in the industry, controlling where the public gets the information on where they can get their cannabis. Like
they're supplying a big they do the big trade shows like in Toronto. They have all kinds of information online.
But when
I thought we had a Canadian counterpart that came up. Sorry, I think it was like strains.com or strains.ca, and it's the Canadian counterpart to Leafly. It's not coming up on me.
Okay.
But anyhow.
Come on, Internet. It's just
2 more minutes, sweetie.
Okay. Let's move on to this next part of it. They announced there that the provincial elections are on October the 22nd. They're going to give the new councils in the municipalities 1 month to decide on whether to opt out of having cannabis.
Yeah, 3 months.
3 months.
I don't get that. What does that mean?
Well, they have a chance to do that because they don't plan on having any brick and mortar stores until April. So it's no skin off their nose to give these new council members and mayors a chance to do that. And a lot of municipalities are choosing to go that route. So if a whole bunch of municipalities choose to opt out, and we wind up with a province with sketched amounts of stores that are brick and mortar stores that are going to be operational, then how is it going to make the province legalization program work?
Well, you're going to have to order it from online.
Well, then people are
back. It doesn't really make anywhere a dry zone.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is we want to be able to go to a store.
Sure.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was part of the fighting for sure. And, at what point, you brought up a really good point there, Kim. If all these little communities, you live in a community much like mine, you got Timmins and Porcupine, South Porcupine, you've got all these little places around you that make up your area. And, here I've got Midland, Penetang, Tiny, Tay. If they all decided no.
Yeah, they all have their own council. So they all make their own decisions.
Yeah, so if we're looking at 45 minutes minimum to get to the, to say Barrie.
Yeah.
That's it's going to be interesting. Well, here again, your town council, your municipal elections that is the area where you as a citizen have the most influence. And now's the time. If you've never paid attention to politics before, now is definitely a time to
I couldn't agree more, Irene. Everybody's having town hall meetings and meet the candidate meetings. Man, you got to go and speak
tomorrow night.
And not necessarily even speak up if you don't feel confident doing that, but get an education. Get in there, learn what's going on in your community. Just watch how that plays out. If you do feel strongly or you believe in something, absolutely speak up and share what you know, because it's for the benefit of all, and this is your community. And the only reason your council members or your town council is they're earning an income is because you put them there.
That's right. They're supposed to be your voice.
They work for you.
Yeah.
So give them a job to do.
Yeah. Well, Kim, you had that recent experience with your mayor.
I did. We communicated online afterwards quite a bit, back and forth. We're negotiating a date and time for me to go to his office and have a little conversation, which I'm very much looking forward to. But then I also found out about our Meet the Candidates meeting, which is going to probably take place before I have that conversation with the mayor. So we'll see whether or not he still wants to have it after the meeting.
That's right. Yes. Okay, I got two more things I want to touch on. I don't know how much time we got. It's only 22.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and I'm going to get an answer from our friend Tim Barnhart at Legacy 420 on this. And that was what they said. First Nations will be allowed to refuse retail stores.
He was just online, and I was going to say you should ask him to come on. Let me see if he's still online.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're
no, he's not online anymore.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because just not only Tenega, but there's all kinds of reserves where they're looking at this as, there's good in it. I know there's one reserve that has been fighting against having retail on their lands,
and that's First Nations.
They're willing to have a licensed producer come on and produce on their land, but they're not looking at having it as retail.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of these reserves, a lot of them consider themselves dry, right? So they don't allow alcohol or anything like that. So they put cannabis in the same basket as that. So they don't want it coming in and making a dry reserve wet, so to speak.
What about you, Deb? Down there in Nova Scotia, I'm not sure exactly what your setups can be. Whether it's private retail or you guys got the alcohol mixed in with it. Deb?
Did we lose Deb? Maybe she's on mute.
All but one be based directly in a Nova Scotia Liquor Commission in a separate little room off to the side, if you will. There's going to be one outlet that's completely cannabis. The one outlet that's completely cannabis, apparently there will be some opportunities to be able to at least smell the cannabis, so they're claiming. The 11 outlets that are in Nova Scotia Liquor Commissions, they don't want to introduce that feature for fear the people in the room next door buying alcohol might smell the cannabis and be offended.
So they're going to come up with sniff me boxes. Here, push this button.
The smell police. The smell police.
Absolutely, it's ludicrous that taking it to that degree for sure.
A comedian's paradise is about to come up.
And certainly there's been talk. I remember being at Higher Living Wellness Center at the Greenwood location when the local MLA, who happened to be our previous health minister, had finally been enticed to come to the dispensary for a visit, and patients were invited to come in and speak with him. And I was there, and he was basically saying to Heidi, come on, like, couldn't you wait at least another year before you do this kind of an adventure? And of course her answer was no, because patient needs were more immediate than that. But we're hearing really strong rumblings that within a year Nova Scotia is actually going to go to a private model.
Oh, really?
Jesus.
I'm assuming the product would still all be coming from a licensed producer, but it's just absolutely ridiculous the way that they're proceeding. And after multitudinous complaints, finally they moved from 9 to 3 locations, mysteriously discovering that they had space in these 3 outlets. But they were 3 outlets that were 3 areas rather that were identified by the general population as there being a need, because otherwise people would be left in loops that they'd have to drive at least 2 hours to access a cannabis outlet.
Oh, 2 hours. Come on.
So now we're back to an hour for most. I think there are some places where they'll have to drive a little bit further, but by and large, it's about an hour too.
So as the part of the legislation looks like about as far as First Nations, is there anything like that in Nova Scotia where... here we're finding here in Ontario, there's reserves, there's lots of dispensaries on it. I don't know whether if that's the same situation down there, and whether the government has enacted a toll towards the First Nations when it comes to cannabis.
This government, our provincial government, certainly has no interest whatsoever, I believe, in authorizing any kind of an outlet that would service patients.
Oh.
They keep maintaining it's a federal program. It's not their jurisdiction.
Okay.
Go talk to Health Canada, blah, 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 blah. When they could, realistically, they could be advocating on our behalf if they truly cared about patients.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
If they truly cared.
Talking about patients and stuff, we've been noticing, I'm sure Al and Kim and Irene have been seeing and hearing about the dispensaries here, the opportunity for them to shut down prior to October the 17th in order for an opportunity to possibly get a retail license. So that would mean that they would have to shut down for October 17th and not open until April. So you're looking at, 6 months?
Yeah, which is going to put a lot of people out of business, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for patients who rely on them, again, where are they supposed to get their edibles, their extracts, and all of those things that dispensaries provide that we're not going to find in retail outlets for at least another year?
And it's a totally manipulative move on the government to say shut down now. Now, I get it. It looks good on the surface. It really does. They're saying shut down now and apply for the right regulations, and maybe we'll let you set up. And so what's it going to cost you to go back into business? What's it going to cost you to be out of business? And you're going to run out of money, and with any luck, it'll all go away.
Maybe that's part of their goal.
Well, perhaps. And, part of the online sales, in my opinion, is just to see just what kind of an industry and market is there. And that being said, we couldn't let this fall into the hands of the private sector. It's way larger than we ever expected it to be. In addition to that, any online sales are completely and totally recorded. Everything is identified. I can walk in and buy a coffee with my debit card or with the toonie in my pocket. Which one's recorded?
Yeah, that's right.
So, these are all things to keep in mind. Not that I disagree with the government having control for a very brief period of time, and so that is the one thing that I liked in this whole statement from Queen's Park today, was that, pardon me, that they are going to allow it to go to the private sector, but it is a brand new industry. And with that, there are a lot of considerations. What about the garbage from that? Imagine living next to a lettuce factory where they clean heads of lettuce, and you're only a mile down the road. The smell of that rotted leftover lettuce because nobody told them what to do with it. It's kind of the same with cannabis. There's a lot of things we just haven't considered on the grand scale. We know what it is on a personal scale, but we don't know what it is on an industrial scale. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time, put regulations in place, and as long as we all stay abreast of the facts and stay on top of it and keep putting your input to all of these decision makers. Tell them what you think. Get engaged. Be involved. And I say that to everybody. But, know what's going on and have a voice. Share your voice and start in your own community.
Yeah, don't just
walk. I know where you're coming from.
Legalized. Yeah, you gotta
and I know where you're coming from. With legalization, too, we need regulation and all of that stuff. I agree with all of that. But, as far as it's a new industry, it is a new industry. But, we've had lounges, we've had dispensaries, we've had an industry already operating for 20 years.
Yeah, we have.
Right?
Yeah, and that being said, let's grab these people that have been doing this for so long utilize them for the valuable resources that they are and say, okay, so what is working, what isn't working, how can we make this on a greater scale? But here's the challenge there. It's a green world, which means there's a lot of envy and it is economically driven. Do you really want to tell your competition how to compete with you? Maybe. That might not be bad business. But So what's working, what isn't working? You know, somewhere there's a lot of decision making.
It's going to create a lot of jobs for people that have been fighting for this industry and this medical plant for so long, that have the right to go into that business, and they should be able to just ease into it. They've been here. They've been running things. They have their own checklists already in place. There's safety networks. They're testing. They're telling people what you're getting. I'll give you an example. Thompson Caribou puts out a fucking awesome product. Okay, and they're gone. They're gone as of the 26th. They're gone. No more sales. Okay, and whatever Dave and his crew come up with after that, great. I'm sure it'll be great for them as a business, but the medical side of things are losing those passionate people. They started out all patients and helping patients and only patients up until 6 months ago. And then they said, let's just let it open. Like everybody else is grabbing the fucking cash. Okay? Before the doors are shut. Those people who have been keeping this market thriving for 10 years or more need to have the right to be there.
Yeah, and that was my whole point. I mean, a lot of these companies, they've got their hands stretched out saying, hey, you know what? I know what I'm doing, and I do it well. I'll take my money and give me a fucking license.
And, there are some people that are going, there are a lot of people that we know from the community that are taking their knowledge that they've learned from growing their own medicine, and they're going into the business of weed, the legal business of weed, be it on their own or with LPs. Good for you. Good for you. Don't let anybody tell you that you got a job with an LP now, you're no longer a member of the community. Do what you got to do. The market is opening.
Yes.
Go to town.
I just wish we would make provisions for people, like Justin Loizos, like Heidi Chartrand. Like these people are with their hands stretched out saying, fucking license me.
Absolutely.
Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, like Justin, he was just on the CBC report there on the National. Like, what do you do? He's so many patients that he's dealing with, and that's why it's called Just Compassion. And everything's compassionate there. It's not about the big almighty dollar. And
we had him on
I'm sure
the
he wants
420 show just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm sure he wants to be legal, but he also doesn't want to leave his patients for 6 months.
That's it.
But you know what? You see, what we're going to start seeing happening is medical people that have been around for a long time as helpers are going to go into the recreational market because that's where they need to go. Mm-hmm. But it's going to leave a large gap. So, I just want to tell people that if you've got a good source, stick with it and support them, legal or otherwise. Okay, because the shitty stuff always gets filtered out eventually. Okay, and if that's all you can afford, then that's all you can afford. But if you can afford to go into an LP, then by all means, you go right ahead. I cannot. I will not be using the LP system. I can't afford to, unless ODSP starts paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think they're actually going to be charged or charging per gram or however they're going to market it? And I asked this because they asked this at one of the reporters asked that at Queen's Park, and Fideli got a very, his body language said a lot. He was prepared to say a whole lot of nothing with a lot of words.
The last article I saw on the subject was $10 plus tax.
What are the taxes, though? Because aren't they talking about, just taxing this to the max like they do?
It's going to be GST plus the excise, right?
Yeah. There's a dollar.
Have they said that?
A gram of
GST plus the excise. Well, everybody has to pay the excise.
So a $10 gram would become worth $12.50.
Yeah, and
Correct.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to start paying guy down the road tax.
And also, if you depending with the excise tax,
your own.
yeah, with the excise tax, it works out to 10% when you buy multiple.
It's
It actually
10% or $1, whichever is cheap, like whichever one comes first, basically. So if you're only buying $10 worth, it's $1. If you buy more than $10 worth, then it's 10% is what it is.
Wow.
And then you add the GST as well.
On top of that.
Yes. The GST is added on top of the excise. Excise is first.
I can't afford
that. Wow.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. There's some.
And then, I don't know how anybody else feels about, and I mean, I'm not trashing any particular licensed producer. I get it. You're trying to put a crap load of product out there real fast. And I very intentionally use the word crap load because I had a client come to me recently, and one of my guests just said this on the show as well, but come to me and say, I can't remember which one's which, and I can't read the labels. And she's got this box full of LP cannabis, and she says, they all smell the same, and it's true, every single one. Well, that's part of the drying and the curing process.
Yeah.
In addition to that, and this is the other reason why it being a new industry, it's going to take a while to figure out it's going to take a while to work out some of the hiccups and some of the wrinkles in a brand new industry. Things like labeling your product. The weed that comes off of the field and goes to the licensed producer is tested. Now, let's say that's 22%. That's 22% THC off the plant. That's not after it's been gamma irradiated, flash dried, and not cured. Okay, I don't know what the hell is left, but it doesn't smell very good. And according to my clients, it tastes like crap. So, this is one of the things. Yeah, and so is this what's going to come off this what we're ordering on October 17th. One of the nice things about privatization is we get to get real product. So people, the people who have been in the industry forever and have wanted to be legal, however, reality says that isn't going to happen. And even now they're faced with more and more challenges on a daily basis. But these are the people that, they really care about their plants. They play music for their plants.
Yeah.
I burned out CD players playing music for my plants, man. More than one. I said players.
And so to go to the Arch Steakhouse for a steak, because I know that he just gets the best cuts of beef because him and the butcher have been best friends since kindergarten kind of thing,
right,
versus going someplace else. It's the same kind of idea with privatization of pot retail. And I, for one, look very forward to the day if it ever comes, but I think it's going to begin with saying, actually saying, no, I'm not buying it from the government. It's that simple. I want someone who knows exactly what they're doing, and that when I ask them, well, how long did it take you to turn over that crop and how long did you cure it for, I actually get a real answer instead of some gum-flopping BS.
Well, you know what? It takes us right back full circle, doesn't it, Al, to the very, very beginning with our good old government swag.
Yeah.
And we had to say, no, I'm not buying that crap.
Yeah. It's PPS. Okay, we've got a little bit more than 10 minutes left here, everybody. I want to touch on one more subject before we go to the shout-out part, and with all four of us. Could take an hour just to get through that. They say that, I know we touched on it a little bit at the beginning, and that was the fact that it looks like it's going to be covered, the cannabis and the smoke-free tobacco or act and all that, will be able to consume wherever you can consume tobacco. Now, we mentioned about jobs and that earlier, but that should give us basically almost the feeling or the freedom that we're getting now as medical patients, where you can walk down the sidewalk, because it wasn't you can walk down the sidewalk with a cigarette, so you can walk down the sidewalk with a joint now. You don't have to be worried about getting arrested like you do in Halifax.
And that for me, personally, is a breath, because I spend a lot of time on King Street down in Hamilton, which is right downtown in the old village, and people are getting tickets for smoking cannabis on the street. So now that stops.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think where this is going to have a lot of effect, and I mean, I'm looking forward to hooking up with a couple of housing corporations or condominium boards, condo boards, just to do some information seminars, because some of the things, I mean, you don't want to violate the rights of your tenants or your residents, whereas some condos are saying, I don't want my next door neighbor, our walls are paper thin, I don't want to smell cannabis through the wall. So I'm thinking, putting in regulations like, well, then it has to be in a grow tent and you have to have a carbon filter. We're not going to stop you from growing. We're not going to violate your rights to grow.
I don't think
Can't regulate smell.
I don't think that they're going. Yeah, Kim was talking about that there on Monday.
Yeah.
You can't regulate the smell, but I know, for instance, I take the dog for a walk in the morning, and I can smell 4 different strains by the time I leave my apartment and go down out to the building. And so I've lucked out. Okay,
You're only on the second floor,
and I'm only my sister's on the 4th floor, and she tells me that everybody smokes up there too. So
I mean, can't regulate smell. I mean,
that's right. But fortunately, my point,
curry.
Kim, my point is, I've lucked out. But I know for a fact that I had an issue at my mom's condo being able to smoke cannabis. I had to go outside, and there were remarks made by neighbors, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my mom's considering using it for her pain, and now I gotta find another way for her to do that, because I'm afraid that she'll have to fight that fight.
Stigma.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly the stigma that's associated with it, because it is, there's still, and especially in the older generation, there's that reefer madness or archaic attitude. But I'm thinking, you're right. You can't fight smell, but to be, what's the term I'm looking for? You'd basically be rejected because you are a cannabis user. If from housing, and housing is hard to find for a lot of people. The apartments just aren't out there. The condos aren't out there. The housing's not available, and so it's already very competitive. Now, is cannabis going to become the next reason why they say no?
Maybe.
Or why you're getting evicted. Yeah. Discrimination. Thank you, Kim.
More discrimination.
I just went through with my
another
apartment
element.
searching.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got about 9 minutes left. 8 minutes left.
8 minutes and 30 seconds.
All right.
Well, for one, I welcome the new regulations that are now obviously not saying that there's only private property. Being able to smoke anywhere that you can smoke cigarettes is a big win for Ontario as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for us here in Timmins, right now our Timmins hemp community, we're currently trying to plan for our legalization bash, because of course we're having one. So we started thinking, well, shit, if you can only do it on private properties, then where are we having this bash? We can't have it in a park. We can't have it in any of the usual haunts that we've gone to over the course of this last summer, or we're all going to get in trouble. So this opens the door to some new avenues that we can explore.
Good.
Right.
Okay.
You know what? Can I ask something about that? To be cautious, didn't they put the Ontario Smoke-Free Act on hold? They were making modifications to it. They put it on hold.
Yeah,
so
I think we're going to find out more. I think we're going to
are
find out more tomorrow. There's some legislation that's going to be introduced tomorrow.
Like we may not be able to smoke tobacco on the street.
And tomorrow being Thursday, September the 27th.
Yeah,
just in case
if I'm around and I'm able to, if I'm around and I'm able to tap into the press thing.
Okay, we're down to about 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Shout outs. Irene, got a shout out?
Yeah, you know what? I'll just shout out about who I am. Anybody wants any information, check me out on cannabiscornercafe.ca or greenirene.ca.
There you go. Good stuff. Deb?
Pardon me.
You caught her
I'd
napping
like
now.
to mention that Maritimers Unite for Medical Marijuana are putting on an educational forum on October the 18th. That's how we're rigging in legalization the day after. The forum is called It's Legal, Now What? Exploring Bill C-45 and Bill C-46 for any ramifications that may be included for patients in particular.
Mm-hmm. Good. It's always great the stuff that you guys do down there. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so glad that you've come back to the show to be able to let people know what's going on the East Coast. You know, we hear from you once a month, so this is going to be great.
Well, thank you, and it was nice to meet you, Irene.
It's an absolute pleasure. We'll talk again soon, I hope.
Kim, quick.
I'm going to do a shout out to Timmins and the Timmins community. Come on out to the All Candidates meeting. It's taking place. The mayoral debate and meet the candidates meet and greet is going to be at the O'Gorman High School on October the 4th, I believe I'm looking at it. Yeah, October the 4th at 6 o'clock. I'm going to be there, and I hope that others in the cannabis community join me to address the mayors on our concerns.
All right, good stuff. Al, you got, I don't know if you, shout out, man.
Sure. I'll shout out to everybody at Gungeonistas because that's where I am on Fridays doing my show now.
Good.
And you can find them at gungeonistas.com.
And your show is Friday nights at 7 p.m.
Yeah, unless Marcel is asleep, then we go a little later.
All right. Okay. Just I want to quickly say it was great. It was unfortunate what happened with Heidi tonight. But when something goes bad, something good can happen. I think I look around, and the only one that's not here that's connected to the Pace Radio Show is Alicia. And we were going to do this for an hour, but instead we did it for 2 hours. Talked about the news and a whole pile of other stuff. So I thought everything went great. I had a good time.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep. Yeah. And so I have a shout out to my son. It's his 40th birthday today.
Wow.
Yeah, 40 years old. That's right.
Wow. How's that make Papa feel?
Actually, to me, it's because of the age, can be almost like a sibling, a son.
Yeah.
Not a son, but like a brother because of it.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
cool.
Since you're 39, I'm sure it does feel like that.
It does. It sure does. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Just a reminder, Kim, you and I are back on Wednesday with your guest is
McMahon, and we are going to discuss his experience with the Draeger 5000.
All right. That's going to be interesting. 10 hours later, eh?
And just quickly on Friday, we have Paul Hartman and Rena from the High Society Supper Club, who is involved with Canacrawl in Hamilton this weekend, will be joining us to tell us more about that event as well.
Yeah,
and as well as Mary Jane and Marcel.
And Green Irene, she's part of the Reefer Reporters, which are airing Mondays around 4:20.
Around 4:20. Yep.
Around 4:20.
Okay. Other than that, you can find Pace on on Twitter at Pace Radio. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're online at pace-online.ca. Thank yous to our sponsors, the friendly and helpful folks at CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed bank, ccnexus.global. Also the Canadays for all the support and a place to help educate the public. Al, you got to do dual duty tonight, be a producer and push the buttons and talk.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do that on Fridays, just,
Yes.
But not usually Wednesdays.
Crawl out from behind the baggie.
I had
the satirizer too. So.
And you even have to put pants on now, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that really sucks.
Good.
I'm in my PJs today.
Well, thank you for joining in on the conversation. Like I said, I had a great time. Thanks a lot for doing this. And thank you to our listeners. I always appreciate our listeners for tuning into the program. And good night.
Well, thanks for having me. Great chat. Good night.
Later.
Good night.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.